Hello and welcome to Create at Robin's House. I wanted to go over one of our Father's Day stamp sets, and for a particular reason. One, it's the Father's Day cards that I'm going to do this year, but you can see that the card design that I'm going to suggest, which is this one, you can alter it in many ways. You can change the papers up, you can have a border or not have a border, or you can change the color of the border, and mine kind of depended on the person that I was going to send it to. But the reason that I wanted to go over this project with you today is because this is a very large stamp set, and with any large stamp set or solid stamp sets, they're really hard to stamp at first. And some examples of that is one of the practice cards that I made had a lot of bubbles or something, and this is because when stamp sets come from the factory, they have this film on them, and so we're supposed to, one of the things in your stamp set talks about caring for your stamp sets and conditioning them so the inks will transfer evenly. So you can rub it across the stamp pad or stamp on scratch paper. And some people choose to, they'll rub the stamp set on their arm, or they'll take a rub and remove eraser. But I've always been more of the, I will just stamp and stamp and stamp and stamp on a scratch paper until my image is how I like it. But this one was especially difficult because it's so big. And so I wanted to show you how to do this card while kind of going over that as well. So when you're doing a big card like this, so you'll want to take your piece that you're going to stamp on with, of course, on a big stamp you want to be sure to use this foamy stuff that comes inside your stamp set. But this one's also tricky because it's going to be hard to aim. So I'm going to set my pieces on the card so I know what to aim for. And then you take this giant stamp set, it's on a 4x4 block, and so I didn't condition it on my arm, but I did condition it on that other paper, and I stamped many times. If you like stamping it on your arm or rubbing it on your arm, that's perfectly fine. I just never found it necessary. More than half of the stamp sets, I don't even feel I need to condition. So you want to make sure you get lots of ink on there by bouncing around. You can see I've got pretty good images on my thing, and now that I have those papers down, I can kind of aim. But even as I'm standing here, it's pulling away. And sometimes it even has to do with the color of the ink. Like, I have really good luck using my candy apple. Every time I stamp with that one, the images come out lovely right from the start. So like when we had the blue skies and those solid flowers, I started with the candy apple and they all stamped beautifully. So in my mind, sometimes the ink, just how it's making friends with the different stamp sets. Like Lagoon is one I never stamp with first until the stamp set is well seasoned. So you can see that this one had some difficulties. There is another way of stamping, especially rather large images, and that would be with the only one I know is the Holtz one. If you're going to stamp a lot, like Christmas cards or something that's especially complicated, this one is nice. And I found that if I put my cushion even inside and then I put my card, well, the first thing you have to do is on something you've already stamped, and maybe like mine you're less happy with it, you would put it in the page and then lay it right on top of the one you already stamped because you know it's in the right position, and then bring that tray down. It will then grab the stamp set so you can put it in place how you want it, and then bring over the paper that you want to use. And I was hesitant at first to put this in on top of the fuzzy paper, but it seemed to work okay. And then you would do this same thing, and it's kind of nice on the larger stamp sets if you can do it on this platform, because you're putting the ink on the stamp rather than putting the stamp on the ink. And in some ways you can also move more quickly. Well, so one of the things they suggested was twisting on the stamp set and just stamping a lot of extra times. Now the stamp platforms are still only as good as the table underneath them, and these craft tables are generally terrible, but it came out just fine. So extra pushing on the top, and sometimes I have to pick it up and squeeze it together just because, but so this is another way, if you're having a really hard time stamping your images, that you can get it to work for you. Okay, so now that we have our card, we can finish putting it together. And this one's a really nice card because it uses just scraps of paper. And then of course white daisy is always in my stash, so okay. And then for the stripes, so I have the one card that I made. This one is actually shimmer trim, which I have cut to 1/8 of an inch wide. A lot of you guys don't like cutting your shimmer trim because it's all uneven. So the next thing to do is take shimmer glitter paper. Now we don't have blue glitter paper, or at least I don't. So I like to take my white glitter paper. I like to take my white glitter paper, and I will use my markers to color it. So this one is using one of our old colors, and I like to use our old markers because they have that chisel brush, and I'm a lot less concerned about hurting my marker by coloring on glitter paper. But this other color is actually closer to the project that I'm working on, so I did end up using that. And you just take your white glitter paper and carefully, it is going to chew up your marker a little bit, so the lighter you can press with your marker, the happier you'll be. And you don't need a lot. It does accept color quite easily. And I cut my piece a little longer than I actually needed it to be, so I have a place to put my fingernail. So once those are colored, you can put them on your project. The nice thing about the alcohol markers is I would be willing to bet if they didn't have the color that you wanted, you could put another color on top and build a color that you want. And then the edges of the card, turn it over and cut off any, whether your little strips or your glitter paper are hanging over. And then the last thing is we also need to stamp again on another color of paper. And I wanted to go over with you how to cut with that, because a lot of people move your scissors and by the time you're done cutting, your little wrist is just dying, but I wanted to show you, you don't move your scissors, you move the paper. And so this is called paper piecing. Sometimes I accidentally call it paper piercing, but it's stamping an extra image on another color and then cutting it out so that you can have a look of multiple layers and multiple colors in your stamping. And you'll see that in mine, although this is part of my stamp, I have chosen to cut that out because I think the back side of banners is never the color of the front side of banners. So I cut that off so that when I glue it on top of my project, it will look as though the back side of the banner is white. There you go. Now you're able to get another word in your stamped message that looks totally different from everything else in your message. And then one of the funnest things about boy cards is you have got to add metal to boy cards. And one of the funnest ways is to add a few quick little staples. And I'm out, but it'll just have to be 2 today. And then, now that we've got the staples, it's ready to put onto the card base. And when I do my staples, I try to leave at least a ½ inch so that there's room for the glue to grab onto the card base. And you press it down on all the sides, and that card is good to go. One final thing that I wanted to talk to you about was when you stamp things that don't quite turn out how you hoped, like this one with the... I take my marker, this one turned out worse than this one, and I colored it in with my black marker, and now you can barely tell that it was having issues with stamping. And it is a little tough to find out if your inks match completely, but I'll use that same marker that I used to make the shimmer trim on the other card and just color in some of these white spots just a little bit and see if that makes me a little happier. Because although I will know that I altered my card, I'm pretty sure the person receiving it will never even notice. See, just adding a little bit of extra marker in there and it looks so much better. So that is us making this card today using this stamp set. Someone to look up to for the Father's Day special, and then there's the other legendary Father's Day as well. So thanks for joining me today. I hope you have an awesome day and happy crafting.